So it's a little bit of a weird day. Yesterday, the Mexican military, and I strongly suspect U.S. Special Forces, did a raid in the state of Jalisco and killed the head of the CJNG cartel, which, if you are not familiar, is the absolute worst one in terms of just brutality and violence. Most of the city I'm in, Querétaro, which is hours away from where the shit was really going down, people locked up in their homes, businesses closed, and things were really quiet all night. This is my first time being out, and things feel super normal. I spent the day kind of tracking the story yesterday, working some of my contacts that I made locally, asking them, what they're seeing, what they're hearing. It's making me think a lot, I've never really been, I was thinking about it yesterday, and I think the closest thing I've ever experienced to something like this, which is not super close, was 9/11 when I was a kid. And just the way that everybody was kind of tuned into this one tragedy, and it's just surreal feeling to be, and again, not close. I had a bunch of people, and they were so sweet. A bunch of people on my TikTok videos I was posting yesterday telling me, be safe. You shouldn't be posting this. You don't want them to see. And thank you guys for the concern. I assure you, though, everything was okay in my little apartment. It also got me thinking, though, about some things that I sort of have taken for granted as an American living in America. Oh, Oxo's close. Look at that. See, this is what we're seeing. Shops all closed up. So I'm locked in my place yesterday, and I feel vulnerable. Now, as a proud American, I am, or was, before I sold everything I owned, a gun owner. And it really bothered me yesterday, not just for my sake, but just for everybody, that there are, millions of people hiding in their homes right now. And at the end of the day, the only thing that is keeping them safe is just sort of the anonymity of the crowd. If a, cold-blooded sicario wanted to kick in the front door of my building and charge up to my door and break the glass out and come in, there's nothing that can be done to stop him. And the only thing that is keeping me safe is that I'm surrounded by millions of other people in the exact same position. I think when you travel, if you're doing it right, you should be experiencing the culture of where you're going, and you should be kind of opening yourself up to it, right? I don't go to Rome and become a Roman, but I will do as the Romans do. At least try it, be open to it. And I've found certain things in my time here in Mexico so far where I recognize something that this culture has that mine does not, that I think is valuable. I think that we are worse off for it. The example going through my head was when I went to Day of the Dead, which I'm going to publish this out of order today, but you're not going to see that video for a while. The existing within the Mexican culture's relationship to death makes you kind of feel like our relationship to death is super unhealthy, and that we would be better served to kind of learn to make a peace with death that we don't currently have. Sitting there yesterday like that made me realize that this is one of the ways in which I do not give a damn what you think. American culture is superior to all other cultures in our relationship to a person's right to protect their life and protect their property. It just absolutely infuriated me to know that these people are ultimately defenseless. And not only that, but they have a legal apparatus that could punish them even if they manage to protect their life with a knife or their bare hands or whatever. So we don't really know what to expect right now. It felt like things quieted down, but then we saw tanks getting rolled out this morning. And, that could be good, because the question was, number one, can the Mexican military mobilize fast enough to stop this? And number two, would they mobilize enough to stop this? There were 250 reported blockades in Mexico yesterday, where they blocked the road with stolen or hijacked vehicles that they set on fire. They were torching buildings. There was, full-on firefights. I'll add a little combat footage here so you can see it, but I got to keep it pretty tame for YouTube. Okay, I'm back home. I really didn't want to linger too. I am maybe the tallest and maybe the whitest person in the entire city, and walking around with a camera too. I'm not interested in tempting fate here. But let's talk about that. What happens if you find yourself in a situation like this? So first of all, always a good idea, whether it's, Mexico or anywhere, when something pops off, check in with the embassy, on X or their website or whatever. See what kind of guidance that they are giving people from your country. So the next thing you need to do is really keep a skeptical eye, because there's stuff that is, it's going to be blatant misinformation being put out. But then there's also going to be people who are just repeating things that they heard that are incorrect, or the game of telephone or whatever. Example from yesterday was there was word going around that if they don't surrender by such and such time, I think it was 5, that they're going to start going door to door, which is scary, right? That sounds scary, but it wasn't true, for one. And if you take like a minute to understand, first of all, go down, if you can go, if you want more of kind of like the facts of what happened, go into the description. You'll find all my socials linked there. My TikTok or my Instagram is going to be the best place to go if you kind of want like a developing story through the day. But to keep it short, something I expanded on at length there, the cartel strategy in this situation is going to be to form themselves into a wedge between the Mexican government and the Mexican people, so that the Mexican people see the Mexican government as like the worst player here and puts pressure on them to relent. So when you understand this strategy, it becomes quite apparent that going door to door and murdering random people for no reason, holding the entire population as hostage when there's millions and millions and millions of them, like that, it just kind of doesn't hold up, right? That doesn't really pass the logical sniff test. So make sure you are not panicking. Make sure you are verifying things. You're being slow to kind of accept fact. talk to locals around you, look for multiple sources, and disregard anything that's, coming from outside of the area for sure. What you're going to need to decide is this a hunker down situation or is this a flee situation? And I think that when you're kind of working through that framework mentally, you should really be starting with your situation's logistics. For example, if you were in Puerto Vallarta or Guadalajara yesterday, flying out isn't an option. Driving out also isn't an option because they're blocking the highways. Same story for me. Even if I had a car, I wouldn't have left because the highways were where the shadiest stuff was going down. But if we were in the city and they're blowing up random buildings and stuff like that in the city, then it becomes a different calculation. Maybe you do need to take more strenuous measures. Another thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure you got your devices charged, because going after grid infrastructure is just always, in any kind of like kinetic activity, it's almost always going to be like a prudent concern. So keep your phone charged, fill your bathtub up with water, communicate with your family back home, let them know, hey, there's this possibility that they're going to take out the power or take out the cell phone towers or something. And just don't panic if you don't hear from me for a day or two, because that's just always a possibility. Another thing you're going to want to do, and I kind of touched on this, but definitely worth giving its own kind of bullet point to, talk to the locals you do know. The locals are much more, especially when you're talking about Mexico, cartel activity, right? There's a way of life that exists around. A lot of people think that Mexico is just like this war zone, but it's not. It's just a place. There's people living their lives. But part of what allows them to live their lives is they learn to live around this kind of criminal elephant in the room, right? And so do as they do. You must walk without rhythm upon the sand. And then I think the last thing is just keep your head down. Okay, especially if you're in a situation like me right now, where you look different than you just stand out by virtue of existing, by virtue of where you are. You want to go unnoticed. That is what you are imitating what the locals do to stay safe. And what the locals do to stay safe is that they stay invisible. They have the kind of invisibility of the crowd in a way that you don't. So take it seriously. I'm a big proponent of like, don't be so cautious that you won't go live your life. Go and experience the place in general, not just during a disaster, but in general, right? But you don't want to do anything reckless either. So when the locals don't walk around alone at night, don't walk around alone at night. And when the locals are staying inside, because the cartel said, which happened yesterday, the cartel said, we're going to start killing anybody we find on the street after 2 p.m. Do what the locals do. Anyway, thank you for watching. It is months chronologically in the past, but the last video I published, I'm talking about my experience on dating apps in Mexico. So check that out if you're interested in a more normal experience within Mexico.